Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good morning. Happy Monday. Here we go. Indeed, it is a happy Monday. This Monday, we are going to be, how should we stay? How should we say? I love the morning jingle. Well, thank you. Thank you. I did not write it, obviously. Well, it should be obvious. Anyway, we're going to talk about transcendence today. So we're going to start with a reference photo, maybe two if there's time, of a landscape, and talk about how we, from a reference photo, create a painting. Okay, and if there's time, we'll have another one. Then after that, as I said, everything's going to the dogs. We continue on from last week. We're going to finish with that. And before that, we're going to look at what would it be? A dual dog portrait? Two dog dual? I don't know. Well, you guys will have to let me know the name of two dogs in a single portrait setting. Is it dual dog or something else? I like dual dog. All right, so we have a lot to do. So let's head over to the iPad and get going. Let's see, I need to bring you guys with me if I'm going to the iPad, don't I? Do that. And voila, there we are. So what you see in the corners are a little picture holder. But then this is a landscape. If I reference it, if I recognize it, it's from a Atascadero. And there's lots and lots and lots of good stuff here. But as it is, I'm not sure it's a good painting. Good morning, Janny. So what can we do, or what can we pick out to create a good painting from this reference? So let's remind ourselves just what in the heck a painting is. Well, it's nothing more than a light dark pattern, right? Everybody thinks it's full of color, but the value is what it's based on. So when I see this, one of the things that catches my eye is the negative shape in the tree here with the corresponding reflection in the water. Can you guys see that? You pick up on that? And that's noticeable. Why is that noticeable? Well, why do you notice that? You know, all of this is really bright, and this is really bright, and, you know, that's all really bright. Well, that's true. And this is really bright. Well, that's also true. But let me ask you something. Is this real? We usually want to have your focal point right here along the edges. Now, you can't, but you usually don't, do you? No, so that's the one thing. And then the other thing, what makes this light shape special is that it's surrounded by dark. Do you see that? So I would base, again, that's not the only idea you could take from here. There's literally probably hundreds, but you've got to take one. I'm going to come back to this one and develop it just a little bit. But what's the secret to being creative? Come on, you guys were here last week. You remember. How do you be creative? You find a solution and you set it aside. Okay, so we found a solution, an idea, a spark. So let's set it aside. And let's go back and see what other ideas we can find. Well, something else that I see is I see a lot of beauty and raw material right here that we could do something really nice with that as well. And yeah, it's on the side, so what would you do? Well, if we had the reeds going in here, right, again, we'll adjust it. I'd probably maybe throw those into dark. And as we work our way over, we come into light and maybe share that with some of this. I like this dark back here. And then probably not here, but somewhere in the distance, maybe in the location of there. You see all that? I'm going to let a repetition of that happen at a smaller scale over here. And then if I was really clever, or not clever, but you know what I mean. So the question is, how far do we want that? How close to the edge? How close, right? And then what if we wanted to go back into space? We could, just next to this, make another smaller one, which would be a step off of this first one. And so it'd be 1, 2, 3. Right? And what would that 1, 2, 3 be? Well, I'm going to come up with something very light and colorful here, with some of the trees sticking out of it and branches right next to the water with reflection. And I don't know what the name of that stuff on the water is. I think technically it's well, maybe, I don't know. I think pond scum, but I don't know. Doesn't sound too transcendent, does it? But I guess maybe that's the reason we are transcending, huh? So, do you see that? And this will have a lot of light and color and then shadow as well. And then if you frame it against some dark trees back here, you know, all the lights, and then maybe the dark goes over there, and then the dark reeds, then what would happen is we'd see light to light. And then, like I said, if we want to come back here, it'd be light again. So that would be another idea you could develop from this one, which would be completely different, right? What else could you develop out of this? Could we reframe this like this and make it all about the reflections on the water? Well, yeah, that would be another way we could design this. But alas, we have limited time together, so let's go back to our initial idea. Good morning, everybody. Hey. There's why this whole thing works right there, Miss Cindy Meyer. Good morning. So is that making sense to you guys? You know, let me know. The darker, richer would be in the foreground reeds. Well, the darker... So Janie asked, so the darker, richer would be in the foreground reeds. That's possible. But also what we could do with the reeds... Let's just work this out a little bit, and then maybe we'll do our own thing. But I would then see the reeds probably as my dark. Right? I would just say, okay, reeds equals foreground. We need to set the foreground up. So let's set something up here. You know, and that would, this foreground reads like this. Now the size may differ depending on what you're doing, but that would work in both of these. And it works in the one I said I'd like to work on. Because what it does is it sets foreground for this dark back here, right? If I put that same dark back there, we don't have any dimension. But if I get a dark, right, as reeds, just dark, and then come in, and as I move back, then my dark trees, let's put it right next to one of these dark reeds, would be more that value, right? And whether this is light or dark, whatever, on the one I'm doing, it's probably gonna have a little bit, but mostly be dark. And then where's that light we want? It's right in there. And then you got the reflections on the water, right? And what is left is that dark negative shape of the sky. You see that? So that's something, first of all, that's quote unquote visible, right? Because the first thing we've got to do is we've got to find something visible from all of this. And do you see how that really creates some visibility there? And so then after that, what I want to do is I have to decide the size of these things. And remember, there's two things to consider here. There's the picture plane, which is, okay, what is near us? What is kind of near us? What is kind of far away from us? And what's really far away from us? And what's just way the heck over there? And the aesthetic foreground and background, which is where we would like them to look. We may like them to focus somewhere on the foreground, or we may want them to skip right through the foreground. Or the same with the near ground, or, you know, on and on and on, three-dimensionally. And so all that's going to depend. So, when I take that off again, do you see there's no order? You can kind of pick up a little bit of order, like the order that I see just from the photograph. Is right. You see this dark working its way across here. So that's happening. And there's some reflections here. But really it's spotty. The darks are spotty. Spotty, spotty, spotty. In here, and they're about the same size as the lights, which are about the same size as the gray. So it's all equal, 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 equal. And we know equality is not what makes good art, but a dynamic harmony or a dynamic balance. Right? So what we're going to do, again, we're going to take the idea of that sky hole back in those trees and seeing through that sky hole in the reflection on the water surrounded by the dark of the trees. Okay? So with that idea, what I then do is I'll do some experiments. Now, why don't we put this back a little bit? Let's have a journey to get to the end. So part of what would help us with that is if we made sure there was at least a couple of reeds that were really, really tall. In other words, they would go from here up to here. And so that means they're that tall on the board, right? In life, that's, well, maybe they aren't that much of the board. And then what we want to do in the back is, if we wanted to send these way back, we could make them really small, couldn't we? And then that would say distance. But does that create another problem for us? What would that be? If we made our trees small like this all the way across, then what we're left with, and this is, we can put I don't know what we'll do. What am I trying to say? When I'm solving a problem, when I'm deciding on what to do on my canvas, I'm trying to see the consequences of that action. So what I'm asking you right now is, what will be the consequences of us shrinking those back trees down little bitty to show that they're way in the distance? And the answer is, the consequence is we're going to have a lot more sky. And when we have a lot more sky, what that means is the impact of our little negative shape in there is probably going to be a lot less. Okay, not saying it's not impossible, but that's going to make the whole situation a little trickier. So maybe a better solution maybe a better solution where we could still keep the idea of big to small would be to raise that up there. Well, why would I want to do that? Well, for one thing, you could still have smaller trees, but you could run them off the top and maybe just have a little bit showing. So when you did show your sky hole, it would show up, and then we also have room for a nice reflection in the water. Okay, so that would look like then, how are we doing? Oh, we're doing good. I'm doing all right. I know I'm jumping in the deep end. If you're a beginner and you don't quite understand, hold on, because my whole method of teaching and my big belief here is I don't want to tell you things you understand. Because how is that adding any value? Giving you anything, right? What my goal is to talk about things you don't understand and reach down and help raise your understanding to a new level. But that requires quite a bit of you. It requires you to be okay sitting in the unknown for some time, right? The unknown is you letting go of what you know and how you think things work. And, right, you know that. You can always go back. But just give it up for a little while and go try something else. Just like at the beginning of this video, I came up with a solution and I set it aside and I tried another solution. And I set it aside and I tried another solution. Right? What that does is it imbues creativity, and you're going to find a lot more originality, and your imagination's just going to set fire, right? And this is what we're trying to do, is set fire to your imagination. All right. Doing exactly. Well, thank you. All right. So let's get back to the good stuff. Okay, so again, that's just to try and encourage you if you're, wow, I don't quite get what this is over my head. It's not over your head. Don't think that. Those kinds of thoughts keep you from becoming a better painter, okay, or a better anything, right? The old masters, were they good at what they were great at what they did, but they were just people, right? And the same with any great painter today, they're just people. And guess what? So are you. So get those ideas out of your head and just get to work. All right, now speaking of work, back to work. So what would that look like? What would that look like if our reeds were, like I said, nice and big? Then for one thing that does is it makes your job easier. Look at how much of the canvas I'm covering, and I don't have to worry about too much, right? Just make it interesting, some nice silhouettes. Some leaning here and there. And then maybe this side too, not quite as tall, but reeds. Something like that. So what could we call that? Maybe just a number 4 value, dark shape. So this, when I say we're going to design with our dark shape, so what we're doing, and do you see what a clean design that is, and how that helps just instantly define the canvas? Hey, oh, some of it's down there, but we're talking about a dark shape right? Not it's kind of dark and it's got some light and it's got some color and it's got some gray and it's got a little bit of this and it got a little bit of that, and then I want to show, no, it is a dark silhouette. It has a part to play in this painting, and the part is dark, right? And there may be dark in other parts. And then the other role it's playing as a dark is a silhouette, right? I hope that makes sense, the roles of these things. Because that's kind of the key to unlocking your creativity, is seeing these things in a way that you can work with it. Okay, so we can argue whether that's good or bad or this or that. But then let's go on to our trees. And what do we say about our trees? Well, they're going to be back in the distance, right? So they're not going to be this dark. And then we also said we're going to have the tree line way up high somewhere, or the water line, whatever you want to call it. And does it have to be straight? No, it doesn't have to be straight across, right? Maybe we want it, but if I wanted to go in a diagonal, do you guys see how that would just ruin this painting pretty quick? How could I still go in that diagonal? Well, what if those trees, the first trees were right here? Boom, boom. And then the second tree, but again, just go in a straight line across, and maybe there's a bank of them. And then maybe there's another bank. So you see, I can get that same diagonal, but it feels like I'm weaving in and out and in. And so that's a slower pace than that. Okay. Now, I don't want that big of a pace back there. For many reasons that I'm not going to go into right now. But I also probably don't want a straight line. But what I do want to decide is, I know I want this up here, but what's the important thing here? If we got big introduction here, I think maybe have some of that lily pond like we were saying here, and some of that tree over there, that would be nice, so that our path could kind of be this way. And then we could have some of that stuff on the pond right here with light taking us up here, and then maybe some more stuff on the pond throwing us over, right? And then I don't know, maybe there's small sky holes here that lead up to, where's our major sky hole? Where's our major sky hole? Maybe right here. And you see, I'm not looking at the reference. I don't see the reference. You don't see the reference. We use the reference to talk about an idea. And now what we're doing is we're exploring that idea, right? And right, maybe I'm on my stomach. Maybe it's this. Maybe I've got, a 200 millimeter lens. Maybe I have a 12 millimeter lens. Anything can happen here. But let's start there. And is that gray enough? Is that gray enough to go dark? I mean back. I always go grayer. But I do want this to separate from my reeds up front. I want those reeds to stand off of these trees back here. Okay. Are you guys doing okay? Are you getting anything out of this? So, again, I do love doing this, and I have a lot of fun, but I can just sit in my bed and do it if I want. But I want to do it with you guys, so hopefully you get into the thinking and then understand what we're doing. So we're just going to call those back, that's back trees. But, no, those are back trees. Wow, you're so good, Jay. Wait, you couldn't do that on, I bet you could do that right there. I bet everything I've done right here, I bet you're capable of. I bet you're capable of putting a dark in the foreground. I bet you're capable of making it that size. And I bet you're capable of putting a gray in the background, and I'm capable of making it that size. Right? This stuff isn't hard. It's not hard. And then what else do we have? Well, we're going to have that long Bum, 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 bum. Use your words, big boy. Use your words. We're going to have that dark reflection off the water here of those trees. And we could have that to be a bit darker, richer if we wanted as it comes forward and the, reflecting. Or we can have it be lighter. I mean, you could go any direction, but you just have to kind of make a decision and go. So if we make it lighter, what's that going to do to the light shape reflected in the water? It'll be less impactful, right? And so what that means is you'll be up on the light there. So let's go get our light then. And I don't know, this may be an exaggeration. Again, I'm just talking roughly how we find these ideas. Then our light shape, first of all, it's got to be an interesting shape. What'd Prince say? Party like it's 1999. Oh boy, howdy. Just you wait. 1999. That's nothing. But anywho, we are going to get some sort of interesting shape in here. It's going to catch the viewer's attention. And what better? And then, every good shape needs a dot, 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 doesn't it? One thing about this digital is I haven't mastered making these marks differently yet. But okay, so where are we going to go? Now this white in the foreground's killing us, but if we covered that up, oops, I don't know what I just did. But if we cover that up, where are you going? You're going back to that light spot. And then how could we even get you more there? Get them more there? You must have been an English major, Jason. Well, actually I wasn't. I know, it's a huge surprise. But, life's full of surprises. If we had a good set, a really good set, just a really nice set, some good looking, the best looking limbs and tree trunks you ever saw. Right, and again, that it definitely will take some designing and stuff, so it's not all the same. Look, I'm seeing some fences being built. You're a fence builder. I'm sorry. But that's the way it rolls. And then, guess what that's going to do? That's going to leave a whole, watery kind of reflection sort of thing right here, which is going to do what? It's going to make interesting paint that's going to be beautiful to look at. The whole reason we're doing all this. And maybe we let this come up there. Right, so that reflection in the water. Boom, boom, boom. Something like that. So let's see. So it's so helpful to see the pace of this process, the wakefulness, presence relating to this unfolding creating. Yes, yeah, that's it. So she ended with, thank you for showing us how to be with this. And that's so much of it it's really not difficult. It's just literally a matter of sitting down and taking the time to be with it and to work it out. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there, and I know I only got to one, and I didn't even finish this idea, but I hope with that exploration you see how I think. So those are the trees and the idea we came from, a long way to go, but how far is that from that? Right? It's not a copy in any sense of the word, right? But we get inspiration from a scene and we think, what could I do with that? What could I do with that? Okay? Because you're a creator. All right, there was a second one there, but you know, it's time to move along, because as they say, what do they say? They say every dog has his day. So it's really so much more meaningful, this process is this. Yeah, and again, beauty is for its own sake. Creating is for its own sake. We're so quote unquote finished product result oriented. You know I am. I think most of the Western world is, or a lot of us. And what's art about? Right? I mean, most of us want to be more creative. We want to be artists. We don't want to be these little machines that are down here, facsimile thing. You know, maybe some of you do. I don't know. That never got me. So anywho, we'll see. All right, so we're going to head to a different chapter here, or change pace and things a little bit. But let's pause for just a second and remind you that if you have not, please subscribe. You can hit the little red button just at the bottom. Woo, along here you find it. Well, subscribe. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. That helps us out. For the month of December, I'll be going live 5 days a week. So what you're seeing right now will happen every morning, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. It started out being a half-hour show, but this gets me jazzed, and I can't do very much in a half hour. So some days it turns into a half hour, and our midweek review is 2 hours. So as a reminder, if you don't have time to look through all of it, on the little gear button at the bottom of the YouTube screen, if you press on that, first, make sure the quality of your video is HD. If you've got that kind of service, the picture will be much, much better. Second, there's a playback speed, and you can increase that to 2 times, and you can kind of whiz through these things and just see them and remind yourself if you want to come back and see them again and again. Okay? So that's our morning show. Our 1:30 show is you welcome in the studio, and we're painting. Last Friday, I worked on the painting you see over my shoulder there. Some days I'm mixing, some days I'm coming with ideas, sometimes we're painting. It is what it is in the studio, but come spend an hour and see how I work on my problem. And then Christmas every day. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, if you take advantage of this, this is a complete arts education. Feedback in the morning, my stuff in the afternoon, and it's not about me, but it's like, rather than 1, 2, 3, how do you in the studio, boom, work on these problems? How do you actually work through them? And so with the technology we have, that's what we've got. So let me get it finished. Orientation come from our color. Probably, I think some of the get it finished orientation came from our coloring book days. Well, yeah, and not understanding that somehow we've got some ideas in our mind that there's a world that's a certain way and you can't change it. Well, actually that world is much more complex than you might think. That tree, what if you looked at that tree from on your belly? Right? What if you bought some risers and you went to the left about 30 feet and up in the air about 50 feet? Guess what? That changes the size of everything. The size of the tree to the size of the mountains to the size. Oh, wow. And then once you learn the visual principles and how to work with that, you just have so much more freedom and it's so much fun. Best month so far. Yes, and my lovely family, my wife and my daughter gets to join me for Sketch Club, which is on Facebook, which is completely different from this. And then at night, we look at some masterworks to see how the masters handled it. So I hope you'll join us. Subscribe. Like I said, we finally got a course platform. So we're going to have some courses coming up here. But for right now, just tune in and see what you get. You're going to get a lot from this. Okay, so let us prep the iPad for the dog days. The dog days. By the way, before we move on, I just wanted to share with you guys. This is the original photo in color, or the photo that was sent to me in color. We'll call it original. Could you have found that before our talk? Right? Could you have found that before we turned it into black and white? The idea of color complicates it to such a degree until you kind of understand the proper role of color that you're going to be much better off. It's just, if you've got a phone, a smartphone, or any kind of computer, it's very easy to flip these things into black and white. So flip them into black and white and take a look. And then give yourself the freedom to rearrange the sizes and see what happens. All right, enough of that. Let's get back to earth here. Let's get back to earth. The salt of the earth. All right? The ones that really see us through. All right, so this is a little portrait, and this is a common thing. So the note was, at this stage, the dogs are really looking like the dogs. And that's kind of a tough thing, because yes and no. The dogs looking like the dogs may mean you kind of have the nose, eyes placement about right. But what kind of painting do we have so far? So this is always a hard conversation, because I know how much work goes into these, and I know how much of your heart goes into these, and I know the place of love that these start from, which complicates it. So bottom line is, you've got to kind of decide on what you want to do from here. You could just leave it as it is, and honestly, that's what I would recommend you doing and gifting this. Okay? Then if you'd like to try to redo it for a new gift next year, a new and improved, go for it. But I'm going to be talking mostly today about the new and improved gift. Okay? So if we were starting from scratch, what would we do here? Now, I think probably you see a lot just from this right now, and I probably don't even have to say much, and you could get it. You could get it. But what's the first principle? The first principle is visibility. Okay, so let's ask ourselves, is this visible? Yeah, right? Well, at least the light dog has got plenty of visibility, or that shape of the light dog. Boom, visible. Okay, so that leads us to our second principle of beauty. Is it three-dimensional? And I'm going to argue right there that it's not. Okay, so we need to add dimension to it. What's dimension? Well, dimension is form, and dimension is near to far, more to less. All right, so dimension, well, Rembrandt would say, right, without atmosphere, a painting is nothing. So he demands not only like dimension and linear perspective, but atmospheric perspective, that more to less. Okay, so we're going to think about form. We're going to think about more to less. And then, did you guys pick up what happened on the last painting? On the last painting, that light transcended, because we never talked about what was in that light shape. But that light shape that we saw through the trees, we saw sky. We saw background trees that were all in the sun and really grayed out and still that light value. We saw the ground in light. And then we also saw all those things reflected in the water. So that light shape that we came up with was sky, tree, ground, and water. So let's ask ourselves, what is this light shape? And is there any way that we could get that shape to transcend the quote-unquote object or the individual dog? Okay, and we're going to start here because we've got another painting to get to, but the answers on this painting are a lot of the answers on the next painting as well. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is we want to see a dark shape, and even if it's, we can talk about how dark it is and everything later, but let's start right now. And it seems to me let's see. So I try again and again to, unless somebody's just really starting out, not to critique a work from any place but the idea of concept. The reason being is if you're working from concepts, all the problems are solved. If you're not working from concept, a million problems are created. Okay, let me say that again. If you're working from a concept, particularly a good painting concept, all of your problems are solved. Let me say that one more time, because I literally, this is the source of every single problem you have, right? It's one of two things. One, you're not working from a concept, and if you are working from a concept, it's not a painting concept, and if it is a painting concept and it's not working out, it's not a very good painting concept. Okay? Boom. So there's that. The only other source of a problem that you can have in a painting is with getting the materials to execute that concept. Right? So 99.9999% of problems with people I meet are they're trying to solve the wrong problems. Okay? And I'm not dissing on anybody or saying people can't do it, but we have so many years and assumptions and beliefs and prejudice of how things are and what things look like, and boom. Right? We have so many of those assumptions. Paint doesn't care about any of that. Not even a little bit. That oil paint you're working with could care less about those feelings. And I'm not saying that to be harsh. I'm saying that to go, so so what does that mean, and what would that look like? What does that mean, and what would that look like? All right. So let's go back for just a minute to the idea. Sorry guys, I'm going to take a minute to do this because I just cannot stand to work on a white surface. Okay. So for 99.99% of you, 99.99% of the time, just change what you're doing. Start over and change what you're doing. Right? I'm not trying to be a dictator here or authoritarian or tell you what to do or you got to do it this way. I'm trying to lead you down a path so that you can see something. But if you go wandering off in the woods, you know, every 2 feet, or oh, I want to do this, or I want to do, oh, I want to see that, I want to see, we're never going to get to see what I want to show you. So, very briefly, let me say why the idea, why a concept, why the movement of light. And very, very simply, these will give you the absolute best, most interesting, visually stimulating or visually relaxing shapes. So what does that matter? What's a painting? A series of shapes. So, if you have more interesting, moving, three-dimensional, right, shapes, the painting is going to be better. So, if you will paint from the idea or a concept, and if that idea and concept is based on the movement of light, you're going to have the most absolute freedom. You're going to be able to get and come up with the best shapes. Boom, boom. And then the dog is just going to appear out of that. And as you get better at this and really understand it, you understand that the only way you can have accuracy of that particular pet, of that person, of your granddaughter, of yourself, of fruit, of flowers, is through correct size and shape of value. And at that point, you're going to stop working from, oh, if I measure from here to here on the photograph, that's 2 inches. Well, that's 2 inches in 2 dimensions. But as you add a dimension, i.e. the 3rd dimension, everything changes. Okay? So I know that went a long time, and I hope there's somebody still watching, but I just cannot stress that enough. And I've gone years and years and years with just kind of tiptoeing around it, and no more. So just for instance, let's just say that's my granddaughter's cat that I have to do a painting for, or I'm doing a portrait painting for. Well, this is one way to do that cat portrait. And I'm being a little bit silly here, but this is two-dimensional. Right? What's a cat nose look like? Something like that. Right? And what we're doing is we're doing eye, eyelid, eyelash. So what I'm asking you to do is tell me where the light's coming from. Throw a shadow on that kitten. And that kitten, if it's alive, it's three-dimensional, and there's a single source of light, is going to have a shadow. Right? And then that shadow, or that part of the cat that's turning away from the light, is also going to block the light from landing on whatever light behind and in front of, right, hits that. Well, on this part of the table, that light can't get through there because this is blocking it. So as it turns, that's a form. As it blocks, that's a cast. Okay? So, because I hear people, well, I don't know how. Yeah, you do. I just told you. But you have so many assumptions, and you're demanding that that's not how it could be, and that yours is different, that you're not able to digest what I'm telling you. Okay? So I no longer see a cat, a granddaughter, or anything else, but I see a form in space, and I'm putting light on it. And then let's just say that this is a person, and they've got a nose. Wow, imagine that, a nose on a person. Well, there's not a nose, but it's a form of a particular size and shape. My nose, for instance, is like this. I mean, you could crash your car. Woo! 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 It's super fast. Tip of my nose, woo-wee. Right? Cut right through the wind. And other people have really wide noses that you could take at 80 miles an hour and you'd be safe. So what is the speed of that, right? But we're going to portray that in terms of shadow and form and light. Okay, so now I've got another form, and it's a particular size, a particular width, whatever. But this is not sitting on the table. It is sitting on this sphere. Right? So how are we going to say that? Well, you just show the cast shadow. Running along that sphere. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So, oops. Okay. All right, now let's go back to why you came here. So, our job as artists is to make interesting light dark shapes. So this is going to be too much, but I'm going to say, I don't know, I think you had said concept of the light coming up over the shoulder like that and back through there. So we could do that. So what if we say the light's coming in this way? What is that going to give us? That's going to give us oil test. What are we talking about here? We got to get a decent brush. Here's some oil paints, heavy texture. I like that one. Okay. All right, so if light's coming that way, then this is the big form. So this is shadow. right, then under, and then that would cast a shadow on the neck, and the neck would be in shadow because it's a form, and then that side would be in shadow, and depending, so we've got shadow. If it's light coming here, depending on how this dog's facing, that might all be in shadow right there, little light. And then if that's in shadow, what's it doing? It's casting a shadow. All right, the light's hitting there, then maybe that's in shadow, connect that there. Boom, that'll be a dark, that'll be a dark, the nose would be a dark. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this reference and I'm trying to find some light dark shapes. Now, in order for this to read, what has to happen? 1, 2, 3, right? Or the background has to be darker than the light and lighter than the shadow. Again, when you're hearing this, it just seems like there's just no creativity involved. Who would want to do that? That sounds... I'm doing it simple and kind of like this so that you can see the clear steps. But the creativity happens in the measure of this. And trust me, there's enough creativity and choices to be made to keep you busy for lifetime upon lifetime upon lifetime. Okay, and then if our dark here with our black dog, that would be the same thing, right? Form, nose, form, form, form. And then, you know, does this dog throw a shadow on that? We could talk about raising or lowering them, all of that. But just basic form of the dog without cast shadows and stuff. Just going to throw that around there. So maybe like this. And then what we'll do for the dark and light is we want to keep it a dark. Let's see. We want to keep it a dark, but we're going to cool it off just a little bit and raise it just a little bit. And you can do this with color, but you'll see that slight change will read, and then with the aid of highlights, we can get the job done. Okay, something like that, and then that's without highlights, and we can talk about the measure. But let's see here. Right, you see, so now I've got values that are really clean and I can see, and then we can talk about movement, moving you along those values or changing those values. The one thing that we don't see on here, do we have this background at 80%? We do. Let's change it. 60%. And by doing that, that's going to allow us to do is those highlights can mean and be more. You know, a highlight on the nose, a highlight on the eyes, if they're there, right? And again, the fur can have highlight too. It just won't be as crisp. Right, see, edges make all those all the difference. And where do highlights happen? They happen on corners. But again, I know what happened. You know what happened. We all know what happened, and so I'm not trying. You know, if we want it, but again, it depends on where you want to go. You know, I'm kind of just haphazardly working here. But like if it was on the back, if you had a little highlight here, come up to the nose, maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe play these highlights down a little, right? And then play some highlights over here up. The eye, maybe a highlight there. And then what if on the redesign we moved him down And so all of this happens down here, and then he happened up there. All right, and I know it's a little, well, and that could work. And then we could bring the light in from here and have it grow to the big finale over there, right? So that would be an easier concept. But what I wanted to do here was show you how I would take these pieces and break them down to then start coming up with that concept, right? You see how clearly I can see what's happening here? And so what if, let's go to a new thing. What if we did what we said, so that we kind of move this dog, I hate to just say dog, it sounds like so bleh. They're more than that. But this member of the family, this household, this little guy here, whatever, if we moved all that up there, and then that could take some of this out. All right, and again, we'll take the background then. And let's move this guy down. Move even down to like there. And why did we do that? Well, so that now they're in this kind of relationship, and that's going to be more dynamic. And then with just kind of the nature of the light falling off. So how would you do that with the light? So your background here, we could get this background quite a bit darker over here, couldn't we? And it still act as background. Like if that the dark one was up there. And then over here, that same background would make that guy really light, or could we go a bit lighter over? Let's see. Well, that's the same value, so we can't go that light. So let's go slightly darker. Can we go? You see, that's just slight. And so by putting the background next to the lighter dog, a little bit lighter, that could take some of the impact off of him, so that it wouldn't just all be about that light dog, but that dark dog could have a little bit of attention too. Right? And the flip side is you could make, the louder you make this over here, boom, the more that light dog. So light dog. The more I paint, the less the verbiage makes sense. But hopefully you can see what's happening and you can see my meaning there. See, and then on that case, that smaller dog will have less impact and the darker dog will get a little more. I feel like I will get it when I'm watching that. It's common because it's not easy changing how we think about things. Yes, yes. Okay, thank you, Susan. Or relaxing. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So Janny says stimulating or relaxing shapes. Wow, the movement of light. Boom. Yeah. Again, it's kind of hard because all of us are so passionate. We're so passionate about things, and we have very strong feelings about these things. And so it seems almost disrespectful to somehow put them in terms of just, wait, dark gray or a light gray or white? What? No. Yeah, that's the facts on the ground. That's our raw material. That's our resources. And then once you start thinking, it's like, it's a revolution. Wow, it's just a completely different activity. And at first, you feel like you're in preschool. Well, because you just don't have any experience thinking like this. And Susan, so when you stand in front of the easel, you have the same thing. But again, the more we do these 4-value compositional studies, part of the reason of me wanting to do this every day is to, grab the Zen stick and just smack you. Quit painting things. Quit painting things. Quit painting things. Quit painting things. For me to make that jump in my evolution and in my progress, Karen D's here. Hey, Karen. Thanks for joining us. People would walk in the studio and quickly leave. They thought I'd lost my freaking mind. But I made these huge signs and they were everywhere. And it just said, no, exclamation point. No, exclamation point. No, exclamation point. Because I realized what was happening in my paintings and why they weren't stronger than they were was because I would start with one idea, and as I'm in the painting, I would change the idea and then be doing this idea and work that idea and work that idea, and holding on to that singular idea and painting nothing but that idea. Didn't happen immediately. You know, I was kind of doing it myself, and so I didn't have the advantage of somebody standing there say, no, no, no. But I put big up signs. And so I constantly, okay, what am I painting? What is this about? What is this about? And then I got relatively good at holding that concept, but my concepts stunk. They weren't very good painting concepts, right? At first. Or they were lacking this or that. But what I was able to boil all my problems down to every single time, if you're working on the concept, there's only 3 things to ask. 3 things. The first thing is it visible? What is the visibility? Right? Is it a firecracker? Is it Saturday? Then boom, give us some strong visibility. Is it a Sunday morning prayer? Bring those values closer together. Quiet those shapes down, not so dynamic. Well, is it a Friday night or is it a Saturday morning, Jason? No, that's up to you. That concept has to come from you. You are the one holding the concept. So when we first start, the concept might just be a light, dark pattern. But as you develop as an artist, those concepts becomes more of feelings. Can I have a luminous shadow? With some heavy atmosphere. Well, yes, you can, and you know how? Value. But it's not 0.7257 value and 0.3.22 value next to one another. It's a feeling. It's a certain stimulation of the eye, and only you looking at that and seeing it as you manipulate it, that's where you judge if it's too much or if you need more. Right? It's got nothing to do with how much you love your granddaughter or love that apple or love flowers or this is your favorite scene. It has everything to do with light, dark patterns, the shapes of them, the edges of them, the measure of them. And that's it. But you know what? That's enough, and it's so beautiful. So beautiful. So beautiful. So Shakti agrees. Yeah, and I know, guys, I was there too. Oh, I got it. Bang, dude. Okay, I could probably quit going to school now because I got this. And then in front of the, so what happened before? I still haven't settled on my concept. Yeah. Yeah, I still haven't settled, so don't know where to direct what I'm doing. That's exactly. So I feel like I should start again with the 4 value drawing. I highly encourage, you can always try things, but again, try from the start working differently. And it's really hard because that enthusiasm you have is almost seemingly drained away from you when you try to turn it into the 4 values and start doing those 4 values. I'm asking you, I'm almost begging you to drudge through that little bit. Because it is a drudge at first. But once you get it, man, magic will start to happen. Right? And if I can spend my energy and my time with you guys, rather than trying to convince you to work with 4 values to start with, showing you what we can do with those 4 values. What you're capable of with just 4 values. You could have dogs and elephants and flying elephants and smoking elephants and elephants in jackets and hyenas playing poker, right? Or sailing, or in the depths of hell and burning, and anything you can dream of, you're going to be able to do. And if you practice and get good at these shapes and stuff, then your accuracy can go up. But trying to get accuracy outside of this system is just simply not going to come up with a very good painting. Now, you may have a pet portrait that somebody loves, that you love. I'm not trying to put that down at all. I'm really not. I'm just saying what we're trying to do here with paint is something different. And it requires us starting with a different mindset. Okay? So the way the classes work, if anybody doesn't know, or for those of you that have been in here, my hope was by doing this, you finally saw the structure of the classes. We start by talking about a concept from a reference, and then we work from that concept. Okay? The first thing we do is a 4-value compositional study in charcoal. Right? And most of us have barely able to do one of those. And I hope what you saw today is I like to get 4 or 5 of those done, just in the idea stage of things, so I can feel about what's possible and what I want to do. Then after 4 or 5 compositional drawings, I start trying to do my compositional drawing for my painting. So after all of that, then I go into thinking about color. Right? And the reason for all of that is that when I get to my painting, I want to do it without having to think about what colors do I want to use? Or where's my dark shape going to be? All of that has got to be in your yes, 4 or 5. And that's why I'm trying to tell you guys, it's not necessarily about getting these to a finished stage. The 4-value compositional studies is about sparking your imagination, getting you to see this way, seeing the possibilities of what can be done. I don't need to tell you that. You can discover that. Now, at first, yeah, I might have to point some things out to you and say, do that. But with time, with me telling you those things, with you trying to do those things, and with you looking at the master works at how they did those things, especially on this accelerated program, that can happen really quickly. Like, and maybe I'm crazy, but if you did this every day with me just a few minutes and you spent some time, if you had the time, a few hours a day of doing this, I think within the month of December, you could easily be working from that concept idea. We've got 3 sketch clubs a week. Sunday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night. That's real easy. It's fast, it's light. Oh, what's the big idea? Boom, boom, boom. So there's not a lot of emotional attachment, right? Student feedback every morning. Boom. In the studio every afternoon. The masterworks in the evening. And then you go to work the next day, right? We get up. And so it's this quick fire and hearing it and hearing it and hearing it and not letting it go and not letting it go, because we're trying to replace a certain pattern of thinking. All right. Did I get too heavy this morning? Did I get too heavy? I hope not. So we're going to leave it there. I hope you got something. Man, seriously, guys, I don't know. I don't want to toot my own horn, but how many of you are brave enough to do that in front of a class. And then ask them if they understand. But hopefully if you were here and you saw what we were talking about, we're talking about ideas and concepts, about working with these concepts. And like when I'm working with these concepts and figuring this stuff out, it may not look pretty. It may not even look like I know how to paint. But again, it's not about showing you anything at this point. It's about my vision. Or more accurately, it's about your vision. It's about your vision. Right? So quit worrying if the neighbor's going to walk in on you or something and catch you with your drawers down with that ugly painting on your easel. Right? That's right. Braveheart. Be brave. Let that ugly painting, let those ugly studies fly free all over your studio. Stick them in their face. Right? But go do it. Spark that imagination. Get that imagination. The beautiful paintings will come. I promise you they'll come. If you'll work with the ideas and work on the right things, it's amazing how beautiful 4 values can be. It'll just take your breath away. All right, I love you guys much. I have got some work to do. And so I'm going to get in the studio. I hope you get in the studio and do some work. And what else? What else? Have a good day. Please subscribe to our channel. Like the video. Tell your family, your friends. It's free. We appreciate you. If you're somebody who responds to this, who this rings a bell to, please do not be intimidated. We're a group of friends here simply trying to work to get better. And nothing makes my heart happier than seeing a brand new person come in and then 6 months and a year and 2 years later, man, they're like full-on painters. No, it's not going to happen in a week. There's no way it's going to happen in a week. There's no way you're going to do it without ugly paintings. So let's put our big boy pants on, our big girl pants on, and let's go make some ugly paintings. Let our imaginations fly. Let them start turning. Produce some ugly stuff so we can get to the beautiful stuff. All right. Gee, what am I going to do with that? You guys are awesome. All right. You guys are awesome. I love you. Get to work. Let's get better. All right. More artists. Great way to start the week. All right. Bye, everybody. Join me at 1:30 and join me at 8 o'clock tonight if you can.